How's it everyone? Jay here. In this video expedition, we will examine the Earth-Mars conflict that transpires during Season 1 and 2 of the Expanse universe timeline year of 2350 through 2351, and the strategic military situation in the Sol system that escalated into a full-scale interplanetary confrontation at the start of Season 3, known as the UN-MCR War, unfolding during the year of 2352 through 2353 Sol. At the start of Season 1, the United Nations Navy comprised of 1,700 combat vessels and 1,300 support ships, outnumbering the Martian Navy by a factor of nearly 5 to 1. The Mars Congressional Republic Navy had 360 warships and 270 support vessels, fewer in number but considerably newer and more advanced, with the majority of the Martian economy supported by the asteroid belt and Jovian moons of Jupiter in closer proximity of orbits, allowing the MCRN to concentrate their fleets, whereas the United Nations trade network spanned the entire solar system, stretching from Venus to the outer planetary gas giants of Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. At any given time, the UNN can deploy 1,000 ships to designated orbits and operational zones, compared to that of 250 Martian naval vessels, focusing on a smaller area of the solar system with a proportionate amount of resources. The governments of Earth and Mars have been intertwined in a Cold War military arms race for over 100 years after Mars seceded from the United Nations at the start of the 23rd century to form the planetary independent military power of the Martian Congressional Republic. In the middle of the year 2350, what escalated this conflict into motion was a rogue fleet of stealth warships destroyed an Earth core heavy transport near Saturn, and 10 days later it overwhelmed and defeated the Donnager flagship of the Martian Navy in the asteroid belt, drastically increasing tensions between Earth and Mars and the outer planets, as UNN and MCRN fleets dispatched warships to strategic locations throughout the solar system. 5 weeks later, the MCRN assault cruiser Sirocco destroyed Saturn's moon Phoebe to prevent the UN Marines from landing on the research station that previously conducted a covert engineering program with the Protogen Science Division. Phoebe was a joint outpost of Earth and Mars, causing political pressure in the United Nations Security Council, warranting a response to what some considered to be an act of war by the Martian Republic. Threat conditions increased throughout the solar system as Earth and Mars imposed restrictions on their trade zones and navigation routes, redeploying fleets near orbital territories, leading to incursions and border skirmishes in high transit areas, resulting in 26 naval vessel altercations. 2350.244, the UN Security Council ordered Earth's orbital defenses to launch an interplanetary missile strike on the MCR long-range tracking station on Deimos, destroying the small Martian moon in response to the Planet Buster attack on Phoebe Station. This propelled the conflict into the proxy trade war phase as both militaries engaged in unconventional warfare. The United Nations Naval Defense Department contracted privateer factions and mercenaries to raid Martian commerce vessels, awarding bounties on transponder codes and data cores for merchant tonnage lost from Martian trade ships. The Mars Naval Intelligence Division deployed their Special Operations Branch of stealth PT boats and armed patrol skiffs of older models with updated drives and systems to blend in with the thousands of planetary commerce and trade ships. This force of 140 raiders inflicted significant disruptions on Earth's trade networks, intercepting up to 10 cargo vessels per day and enticing other opportunistic Belter factions to join in on the UN raiding parties. In the following weeks, the proxy war spread throughout the outer planets, without Earth and Mars actively policing the trade route while undermining each other's merchant fleets. This led to Belter and privateer factions gaining extreme influence with the OPA as Earth and Mars competed for their support during this unconventional shadow conflict. 2351.265. In the asteroid belt, Aero Station and its population of 100,000 had been under strict quarantine from an unknown radiation biohazard, leading to a central fusion core network overload and the resulting detonation, knocking the station off orbit and propelling the planetoid sunward towards Earth. This caused the UN to launch half of their planetary defense nuclear arsenal, with the asteroid narrowly missing Earth and impacting on Venus instead. Emergency back-channel political communication avoided an interplanetary nuclear exchange between Earth and Mars during this Cold War gone hot, as both feuding governments publicly accused one another of causing the Eros incident, adding more fuel to the Earth and Mars shadow conflict. This drastically increased the commerce proxy war as more and more conventional naval warships became caught up in the raids, straying across borders and exchanging fire in the following engagements. During the first 3 months of the Earth-Mars proxy trade conflict, 10 MCRN gunships were lost, with 20 more damaged along with 20 auxiliary Navy ship casualties. The United Nations Navy lost 56 ships and 81 damaged, with over 500 merchant vessels from both sides suffering similar fate, drastically impacting supply shipments beyond the asteroid belt. To prevent a humanitarian crisis in the outer planets, the primary moons of Jupiter and Saturn were designated as protectorate trade zones, making them the only remaining orbits jointly defended by Earth and Martian navies, while the rest of the solar system continues to grapple with trade embargoes, supply route restrictions, and ever-increasing commerce trade wars. 2351.285. In the Galilean humanitarian trade zone, the largest concentration of UNN and MCRN ships coalesced in low orbit above Ganymede due to the moon's primary food production for the outer planet. An unknown event on the surface caused UN and Martian Marines to exchange fire, cascading into a full-scale naval battle in orbit between front-line conventional warships, destroying the large mirror arrays and severely damaging most of the agdomes on the surface. 9 UNN and 6 MCRN ships were lost in orbit. Due to the Mars fleet base on Callisto and strong naval presence in the inner moons, the MCRN claimed jurisdiction over the Galilean orbit, while the UNN Jupiter fleet withdrew to the outer Jovian system. In less than a week, the trade war expanded towards the inner planets and throughout the asteroid belt, with Earth and Mars seizing control of critical trade stations and ports near their spheres of orbital influence. The United Nations and Mars Republic prepared for full-scale armed mobilization, deploying their fleets to combat status throughout the solar system as more naval ships directly clashed in the neutral zones and along planetary borders, with the proxy war drawing dangerously close to interplanetary conflict. By now, the solar system's commerce industries could no longer be subsidized by Earth and Mars to recoup their combined economic losses, as lobbyists from the merchant industries threatened to build their own gunship security fleets and withdraw from the interplanetary trade accords. Additionally, the proxy war could no longer remain hidden from the public media amidst the aftermath of the Ganymede incidents, as widespread protests were mounted on Earth and even amongst patriotic Martian populations, while Earth and Mars intelligence agencies raced against the clock to obtain protomolecule research technology. Trade war skirmishes in the inner orbits continued for another 30 days after the Ganymede incident, before political and economic pressure forced an official ceasefire, ending conventional naval hostilities in preparation for a peace summit between Earth and Mars leaders to be held at the District of New York Planetary Embassy Center. After the nearly 6-month-long Earth-Mars conflict, the MCRN lost 21 gunships with 20 damaged and an additional 35 auxiliary support ships destroyed or knocked out of action. UNN casualties were 86 ships lost and 104 rendered non-mission capable. Over 3,000 merchant vessels from Earth, Mars, and outer planetary industries were lost, raided, destroyed, or commandeered, making this the most costly period in solar system history. Between seasons 2 and 3, at the start of 2352, following 44 days of a ceasefire, re-establishing security trade routes and peace negotiations for treaty stipulations abruptly ended when a lone Amun-Ra-class stealth warship destroyed the MCRN Karakum, a Special Operations 3rd Fleet corvette, over Ganymede. The United Nations Navy Jupiter Fleet was unaware of a shoot-down order as Deputy Undersecretary Earnwright authorized the mission outside the chain of command in a private tight beam protogen frequency, causing conflicting rules of engagement for Earth Fleet Command. The MCRN Jupiter Fleet swiftly responded with a coordinated counterattack, inflicting heavy losses on the disorganized UNN ships. In less than an hour, both fleets switched from relief operations over the agricultural moon into full-scale combat engagements. As the battle raged in orbit, 36 UNN ships were destroyed, with 68 more damaged, as the conflict spread throughout the Jovian system. The MCRN Jupiter fleet lost 11 ships and 10 damaged as the Mars 7th Patrol Fleet pressed the counterattack from outer orbits, preventing UNN ships from regrouping. Over the next 5 days, MCRN fleet reinforcements drove the UNN Jupiter fleet from the core of the Jovian systems, withdrawing to Jupiter's outer orbits. Formal declarations of war were decreed by the United Nations Security Council and Martian Defense Ministry as both planetary militaries mobilized for the first full-scale interplanetary conflict, christened the UN-MCR War. After the Battle of Ganymede and Galilean moons, the United Nations Navy had an active fleet of some 2,675 ships, with Mars consisting of 519 naval vessels. And that, ladies and gentle nerds, will set the stage for Part 2 of the UN-MCR War, to be covered in the next video. Thanks for watching. For more Expanse content, check out this playlist, or hit subscribe for future sci-fi video expeditions. Peace out.